Welcome to Markarth, the safest city in the Reach, apparently. But that could very well be because it's the only city in the Reach. When it comes to the most corrupt city in Skyrim, you'd think Riften would win that argument hands down. But good old Markarth here is an absolute miserable hellhole in a league of its own. The rebellious group known as the Forsworn make the hold unsafe to traverse. The mining industry in the region has been monopolised by a family who have no problem violating their workers' rights. In fact, Sidna Mine within the city itself doubles up as the prison. But you don't even have to be a criminal to live in squalor. For Markarth's poor underclass are forced to live in a slum that makes other slums look like 4-star hotels. There are murders in the city streets and the guards' only response is to tell us to mind our own business. There's enough evidence to suggest the non-imprisoned employees of the mine frequently receive beatings from their orc overseer. Even the Daedric Prince of Domination and Enslavement, Molag Bal, has a house here. And, as icing on the cake, the Jarl's steward is implied to have an erectile dysfunction. I think you get the point. I could go on. But the city of Markarth is an incredibly bloodthirsty place. There is no end of trouble in the City of Stone. And it never really changes, nor are there many opportunities to change it. The story I intend to focus today's video on has further dark, dire implications for Markarth, to the point where you might start believing the city is too far gone, and who could really blame you? For we're going to turn our focus to the admittedly well-known story of the Cannibals of Markarth. Now, this quest can be accessed more or less as soon as you enter the city, provided you're more than willing to ignore the other quest that begins when you enter the city, if you know what I mean. And there are a couple of ways you can discover it. First, you can hear a rumour from the innkeeper at the Silverblood Inn, who will tell us that there's something wrong with the Hall of the Dead, prompting us to venture forth to the Jarl's Palace under Stone Keep to discover what that might be. Or we can bypass that step altogether and head straight to the Keep, where within we'll be able to overhear a conversation between Thongvor Silverblood and a fellow named Brother Verulus.
What are you hiding, priest?
I'm not hiding anything. It's closed for a reason.
Typical Imperial lies. First you take away Talos. Now you're keeping us from seeing our honored dead? You and the Jarl will answer for any desecration of my ancestors' bodies.
That's enough, Thongvor. We're done.
It would appear as if the Jarl, via this Brother Verulus fellow, has some cause to keep people from visiting their dead in the Hall of the Dead. Verulus will then go and stand by the Understone Keep entrance to the Hall of the Dead, where we can go and ask why nobody's allowed in.
If it's about the Hall of the Dead, no, you can't go in there.
What's the Hall of the Dead?
New to Skyrim? I was confused at first too. The Nords call their mausoleums the Hall of the Dead. It's where people in the city are buried. Fathers, forefathers, mothers, foremothers.
So why can't I go in?
I can't talk about it. Rest assured, the Jarl hears everyone's concerns. You will be able to visit the dead again soon.
I could help if you tell me.
Alright. I was going to suggest the Jarl hire someone to sort this mess out anyway. We've discovered that some of the dead have been eaten. Flesh has been chewed off. Bones were snapped to get at the marrow inside. We haven't caught anyone or anything yet. It's like it knows when I'm there. If you can get to the bottom of this, the priesthood of Arcade will reward you. Take my key, and be careful.
And with Verulus's cooperation, which was easier to obtain than it should have been, we can now head into the Hall of the Dead to figure out who, or what, has been scranning the local corpses. And sure enough, without much provocation, the culprit will reveal herself.
Not many would walk blindly into a crypt, smelling of steel and blood, but not fear. I feel the hunger inside of you, gnawing at you. You see the dead, and your mouth grows wet. Your stomach growls. It's all right. I will not shun you for what you are. Stay. I will tell you everything you have forgotten. You were young when you first tasted human flesh, weren't you? A brother or sister had died? An accident, of course. Then the hunger set in. Curiosity. What's the harm in just one bite? It's okay now. You found a friend who understands you. You can let go of your guilt.
Guilt? What are you talking about?
A lot of our kind block out the memory of their first meal. The shame is too much. But you don't need to hide anymore. Namira, the Lady of Decay, accepts you for what you are. She has a place for us where we can sate our appetites without judgment.
Where is this place?
It's inside Reachcliff Cave. But the dead have stirred from their slumber recently, and I was forced here. Meet me there. We'll fight our way to Namira's embrace together. Until then, tell the people of Markarth that their dead won't be disturbed anymore. We have bigger plans ahead.
And this will begin the Daedra quest named The Taste of Death, and our new cannibal friend Aola will simply vanish, leaving us to come to terms with what we've discovered. And that is, of course, the reason the Hall of the Dead was closed to the public was because Aola was down here eating the dead. Because the dead forced her out of Reachcliff Cave. Now the reason you hear her out, rather than kill her for the abomination she is, well, firstly, it's doubtful she's the only one. She keeps speaking in plural terms. And secondly, this is one of the rare instances where the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim implies anything about the player character's backstory out of nowhere. Sure, you could chalk it down to a manipulation tactic of hers implying that cannibals tend to forget their first meal, which is oddly convenient considering the situation we find ourselves in. But no matter how resistant you are to her words, the outcome of this interaction is largely the same. And with her pledge to stay away from this place going forward, we can now return to Brother Verulus to inform him the Hall of the Dead is now safe.
Divines preserve you. You're a hero. We'll reopen the hall right away. Here, take my amulet as a reward.
I'm not sure how he intends to explain the bite marks in Granny, but at least now we can turn our focus to our new cannibal friend, who doesn't just chomp on corpses for survival, but also is a follower of the Daedric Prince Namira, the Lady of Decay, and Daedric Prince of Hunger. And of course, to find out more about what Aola has planned, we must meet her at Reachcliff Cave, which of course we get a quest marker for, so it's not too tricky to find.
You've come. The Draugr infesting Namira's sanctuary are inside.
I could use a hand.
I was hoping you would say that.
And with that we can venture inward with our flesh-munching mate and return some undead Draugr to their graves.
Namira grants us victory!
It's a fairly run-of-the-mill dungeon clear out, there's nothing really to it. And once the place is thoroughly purged of Draugr, we can have another conversation with Aola.
You've done it. The shrine is ours again. Now we need to prepare a grand feast to welcome you to Namira's coven. You will have the honor of bringing a fresh kill for the main course, and I know the perfect person.
Who is it?
A priest filled with the taste of an easy life, Brother Verulus from Markarth. Give him this gold, tell him you need Arcae's help exploring an old cavern for treasure. And when he stands in Namira's presence, she will take care of the rest.
Well, that admittedly doesn't sound like it's going to bode well for Brother Verulus, as we must now lead him to his demise in order to be inducted into a coven of Namira. And of course he can be located in the Hall of the Dead that we were previously tasked with clearing out. Brother Verulus, I have need of a priest in my travels.
You are looking for Arcae's protection while you delve some dank tomb, I take it? My duties keep me busy in Markarth. I don't know if I can help you.
There would be treasure to share.
Treasure, you say? I suppose the Jarl won't mind if I'm gone for a little while. Lead on.
And now that we've successfully appealed to his not very priest-like desires, we can return to Reachcliff Cave where we can get a proper grasp on how expansive Markarth's cannibal problem actually is. Because upon our return to the Dark Tomb, Aola has brought some friends, two of whom are random elves we've never seen before and likely never will again. But then there are some more familiar faces, residents of the city of Markarth no less. First we have Hogni Redarm, who runs a meat stall in the market. He's not a very friendly fellow, but he does claim to sell the bloodiest beef in the Reach. And if his dialogue at this little feast is anything to go by, it may not be beef at all.
The bloodiest beef in the Reach.
Then there's Banning, who sells war dogs at the Markarth stables.
I like the loyalty of a dog, not as fickle as a wolf.
How long have you been training dogs?
My family's been doing it for years. You need one out in the Reach. Don't want to be alone when some forsworn comes swinging. I personally trained a whole litter for the Jarl. That reminds me, I was gonna deliver some dog food to the keep. Spiced beef, their favorite.
I could deliver that for you.
Wow, look at you. Thanks. Take it to Voada. She handles all the dogs for the Jarl.
Banning gives us a miscellaneous objective to deliver some food for the Jarl's war dogs that Banning himself trained. Dogs that, according to Voada, get anxious if they haven't had dinner, and is very thankful upon delivery of their food because they were getting restless. Now at this feast, Banning gives us an idea as to why the dogs are this way.
Ah yes, the courier. I guess you know my secret ingredient for that spiced beef now.
This implies the secret ingredient in his spiced beef is, well, human flesh. Therefore his dogs get restless when hungry because their food is all around them, they're man-eaters. And finally we have Lisbeth, the owner of Markarth's general goods store, Arnleif & Sons Trading Company, whom we can have this conversation with upon entering her store.
No, I'm not Arnleif. Yes, I know it's called Arnleif & Sons.
So, who is Arnleif?
I inherited the store from my husband. His father was Arnleif. My husband, Gunnar, died about 5 years ago. Forsworn attack. I miss that stubborn oaf.
That's quite a sad story, really. However, at the feast, Lisbeth will have this to say.
One of my customers? Did you know I inherited the store from my late husband? Shame what happened to him. He had such good taste.
The implication being quite obviously that the Forsworn weren't the ones who killed her husband. She's the one responsible. She killed Gunnar and then ate him. Which is a strange way to show your affection, but I suppose if you're a cannibal, you've got to prioritise one love over the other sometimes. So now that we've established that Markarth is home to an assortment of cannibal wrong'uns, before we can turn our focus to the implications for the city of Markarth, let's observe, or rather participate in the fate of Brother Verulus, whom if you recall we brought here with intent to feed on.
Who are you? What's going on?
Priest of Archay, I'm your friend.
You're my... friend.
Yes, I'm your friend, and I've invited you to dinner.
I've been invited to dinner. I'm so hungry.
Why don't you lay down and rest while we get the meal ready?
I need to lay down. I'll just be a minute.
Come with me. Our feast is about to begin.
Ah, the new disciple. I hear you have quite the appetite.
You've brought us quite the meal.
Before we get too carried away with the fact that cannibals appear to make puns all the time, our objective is to sacrifice Brother Verulus and eat him.
Mortal, I am Namira, the Lady of Decay. Your consumption of the blood and bile of Arcay's own is pleasing to me. I give you my ring. Wear it, and when you feast on the flesh of the dead, I will grant you my power.
Ah, how kind of you. Thank you very much.
Wallow in your wretchedness, my newest champion.
I knew when you walked into the Hall of the Dead that you were special.
Well, I guess we're officially cannibals now ourselves.
And here you are, champion of Namira, keeper of her ring. You're everything I hoped you'd be.
I feel physically under the weather.
There. It will pass. Going too long without a proper meal can make the stomach weak. Feel free to stay and mingle with your new coven, if you have the strength.
Praise to you, champion.
It's an honor, Keeper of the Ring.
You were given Namira's ring? A great honor.
Namira spoke to you? I knew this feast was going to be something. Until next time.
I'm so glad Ayola invited you to dinner.
So now that we've made some rather reprehensible cannibal friends and have a Daedric artifact for our troubles, concluding the quest The Taste of Death, I think it's safe to assume the revelation that Markarth is home to a coven of cannibals is but rotten icing on an already rotting cake for the troubles of the City of Stone. Because not only do they happen to reside here, but they were complicit in luring a man from the safety of this city's mighty Dwemer walls and then sacrificing him so he could be consumed. And though so are we, this is our first time. They've been doing this for what dialogue would lead us to believe has been years. And there's no telling how many residents of Markarth have gone missing over those years. And with the convenience of the Forsworn's existence, there's certainly wiggle room for these man-scranners to operate without having to worry too much about being ultra discreet. That said, they aren't fond of you mentioning their meals in public.
Don't go talking about that. Only the dinner guests can know.
But the point I'm trying to make is people can regularly go missing from Markarth, and the Forsworn are an easy scapegoat, one Lisbeth used to explain away the death of her husband, and according to dialogue in Reachcliff Cave, was about ready to use the same excuse to eat her servant. In other words, this is a well-oiled machine of scoffing locals, a problem the Reach doesn't realise it has. And it gets worse. There are man-eating dogs in the Jarl's palace, and one of the aforementioned cannibals has a market stall selling meats that he claims comes from the orcs but implies that it's actually human meat, meaning he may very well have customers that don't even realise they're eating human remains. That said, his other dialogue with NPCs in the market would suggest his stall is not awfully successful, as everybody is repulsed at the rotten quality of the meat itself, which might explain why he retreats to a secluded room in the Silver Blood Inn and tucks into raw meat and an apple, embracing his miserable existence and non-existent chin. But I'm sure somebody at some point has purchased something from him. Surely. Ultimately, however, Markarth is simply home to some incredibly messed up things, and the presence of cannibalistic maniacs is just another one in a very long list. Arguably a story befitting of a city so corrupted and rotten. And yet another example that foils the guard's statement that Markarth is the safest city in the Reach, which is where I'm going to leave today's little journey. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, maybe share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. But until next time, please take care and goodbye.